Good evening, everyone. My name is Celeste de la Cabra. Welcome back to my channel. So today on the agenda we have our monthly slate of Vinegar Syndrome reviews. My living Halloween decoration has decided to join us as per usual. So sorry this video is a little bit late. I don't know, October's just been really busy and it took me a little bit longer than usual to get through this stuff. But yeah, we have 4 titles to talk about today, and they are Mutant Hunt, Buried Alive, The Iceman Cometh, and the Amityville Horror on 4K. So let's go ahead and blast through these in the order that I watched them, and perhaps coincidentally, perhaps fortunately, the one that I liked the least is the one that's up first. I know people love to watch people shit on things, so, you know, let's start off with some entertaining roasting, I guess, and talk about this piece of shit, Mutant Hunt. Now, I'm being a little bit rude. Like, I don't ever want to call somebody's art like a complete piece of shit, unless they're like a Nazi or something. But like, I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it here. Like, this shit was awful. And not even like in a fun way, just in a like, this is so bad kind of way. Like, I guess it's kind of fun for one viewing, like with friends or something. But for me, this is not something that I'm ever going to revisit ever again. Like, it was a fun novelty for a second, but I don't ever need to see this again. It'll never ever live up to how fucking badass this cover is. Looks like some old, like, I don't know, like a Nocturnus album cover, or like one of those techie death metal bands from the 90s, you know? So if you're one of the unfortunate souls who saw that cover in the video store days and thought it was probably amazing, and then you finally get to watch it and you're stuck with this piece of shit, like, I'm sorry. I could try to summarize the plot, but I don't know, let me just read it to you a little bit. In the near future of 1992, robots have become a facet of everyday life. Dr. Z, the diabolical head of one of the country's top robotics firms, has developed a solution named Euphoron, which when injected into his cyborgs transforms them from manservant into impossibly strong and powerful killing machines in an attempt by Dr. Z to take absolute power. That's, I mean, basically the gist right there, right? Will you relax? Yeah, this was a direct-to-video sort of deal. I really don't have a lot of good things to say about this. Like, the acting is so unbelievably wooden in this. Like, I think I said this to Avery when we were watching it. Like, okay, you have actors, right, who are trained, and you have bad actors who are still trained, so they know what they're doing, they're just bad at it. Then you have, like, pulling somebody right off the street who would probably not make a good actor without any training. And then I feel like you have people who would be bad even for that standard. That's the level of acting we're dealing with here. So the one thing I can say that's nice about this, and why I didn't give it like half a star or something, is the special effects are actually quite good. They're like professional by like a real person, and some of the on-set or on-location cinematography is pretty good, and the lighting and the color palette during those scenes is fairly enjoyable, but like the majority of scenes in this shit are filmed like clearly in somebody's apartment or something. There's like 3 locations in this thing, and it's, I don't know, I've talked about this enough. There's some beautiful cover art, but this one's going straight on eBay. I don't need this in my collection. 3 out of 10 from me. Not recommended. The last thing I'll say about that is, like, there is a couple special features on it, and one of them is an interview with the makeup effects artist, and his interview is actually pretty enlightening, and he's pretty honest about the quality of the film versus the quality of his own work, so that's kind of fun. Moving on, though, let's talk about Edgar Allan Poe's Buried Alive. Go ahead and give you the quick tour here. Some sick-ass, hard-ass original poster art here. Details on the back, should you like to look at that. There you go. This film is essentially about a woman who takes a job as a teacher at a reform school for girls, and she quickly discovers that some of the students are disappearing, and we as the audience learn pretty early on that they're being buried alive and being like, you know, it's very Poe, which is, you know, where the title comes from. It's not based off of a specific story. It's just kind of like Edgar Allan Poe was into like burying people in the fucking ground as they're alive, you know, like a cask of Amontillado thing at like a reform school for girls, I guess. Something like that. So they're kind of like, you know, knocked out and then put behind and then the person is like laying a brick wall to keep them in, essentially. And you also kind of have like a women in prison film sort of angle to it. But primarily what I'll say it right now, I loved this film. And primarily what I loved about it so much was the color palette and the cinematography. This is like chef's kiss primo gothic horror. in just the colors and the lighting and the camera work. It's all so beautiful, and I could just live in this and look at it for hours, regardless of what's happening on the screen. But it helps that what's happening is also a lot of fun and is also really interesting. There's maybe some questionable pseudo-psychology at the heart of this, or sprinkled in a bit. And, I won't tell you the ending because it's kind of like a murder mystery in addition to a women in prison gothic horror. There's a lot going on in this one. A lot of things to enjoy. What I find interesting is that this has been pretty universally reviled, and a lot of people really, really don't like it. And I don't quite understand that. Like, I guess some people think that it's dull, or that it's, like, too long, or it's not titillating enough. I mean, for people into that kind of thing, like, there's quite a bit of violence and quite a bit of nudity in this. There's some pretty intense, like, hazing rituals going on. So, if you're here for that kind of thing, it's there. But I think there's actually a very interesting kind of psychological drama at the heart of it. And I really loved it. So I don't know what's going on with people, why they don't like it. Unfortunately, there's really not a lot in the way of special features. There's a couple short interviews on this that I honestly don't even really remember. And I'm pretty sure I watched them. So I don't know. They're there. They kind of add some additional context. But I recommend this for the film. Like, the film is great. And if you're a fan of gothic horror, if you're a fan of Edgar Allan Poe tinted stories, if you're a fan of women in prison films, checks all those boxes, and I think it's dope. So 8 out of 10 for me. This gets a pretty high recommendation. I'll actually go ahead and say here that aside from Mutant Hunt, I loved all of these. Like, I love this slate. This is actually probably the strongest slate so far in terms of my Vinegar Syndrome subscription. Yeah, I mean, I'm selling one because I thought it was garbage, but the rest of these I genuinely love and will definitely be keeping and rewatching in the future. So let's talk about the next one. This is the ICEMAN COMETH, starring Yoon Biao, Maggie Cheung, and Yoon Hwa. Give you the tour here. Got the sexy lady on the back, some lovely colors, some embossed goodness going on here. Beautiful cover art. Vinegar Syndrome, the best slips in the game, straight up. Oh, you got this absolutely atrocious, abysmal original cover art, but it's there for posterity. So essentially, this is a film about... So Yoon Biao's character is a royal guard for the Ming Dynasty, and his brother, played by Yoon Hwa, is like a person who has decided that he has mastered martial arts, and there's no thrill in like being a good guy anymore. So he decides to like break the limbs of, rape, and murder various women as like a hobby. You're being a bastard. You're being a little bastard, you know that? And so the Emperor essentially gives Yoon Biao's character one last chance to murder his brother and regain his dignity after the princess is murdered. There's some sorcery shit going on with like a statue that works as a time portal, and they end up going 300 years in the future to the modern day, essentially. With the cover art here and the name and the general aesthetics of the first 15 minutes, I think people are definitely expecting one thing, and that might be why this has a somewhat lukewarm reception. I don't think this is spoiling it, because it's basically telling you the entirety of the second act. So it starts out, and you have these absolutely gorgeous visuals with hand-painted special effects, just beautiful, soft lighting. You have this, Ming Dynasty era setting and visuals with these beautiful women in these flowy dresses and bathhouses, and you have these ornate decorations and everything. It's just a beautiful thing to behold, really. And then you got some sick kick-ass action scenes going on in the snow, which, watching the special features, were apparently not easy to pull off. But the thing is, once we go into the future, this straight up turns into a screwball comedy for the vast majority of the runtime. I think people are expecting a fantasy martial arts epic, and they get a screwball comedy, and they're like, what the fuck is this? But Maggie Cheung is incredible in this. She is so beautiful. Yoon Biao and Yoon Hwa are kick-ass as always. They give some great performances and some really visually interesting fight scenes. But to be honest with you, that whole stretch where it's just screwball stuff is just as enjoyable to me. It's really funny. It's really charming. There's a good love story at the heart of it. And it actually has some interesting questions that it raises about the ethics of Ming Dynasty era China versus modern day China. There's some comments on feminism and women's rights and men's place in society once women actually gain an ounce of power. Yeah, I just think it's a really fascinating, really interesting, really fun film that I would highly recommend to anybody. Like, if you're a fan of screwball comedies, I'd recommend it. If you're a fan of martial arts, I'd recommend it. Yeah, it gets an 8 out of 10 for me as well. So there are 3 different audio tracks you can pick from and 2 different cuts of the film. The longer cut has not been restored, so I watched the original cut that actually went through the extensive restoration. But the supplements on this are really great. There's an interview with the cinematographer, an interview with Yoon Biao, and an interview with Yoon Hwa. And all 3 of those are really fascinating, entertaining, and insightful interviews. There's also an audio commentary from Sam Deegan on this. I watched about 30 minutes of it, and she was like killing it, like giving some really great information and just giving a really entertaining audio commentary. I'll probably finish it at some point, but I wanted to go ahead and get the video out. So I highly recommend that audio commentary, and I highly recommend this release. Okay, and finally, the piece de resistance, probably for most people. Everybody and their mother has purchased this, even if they're not into Vinegar Syndrome. And that's, of course, the Amityville Horror with this fucking incredible back artwork with the kind of translucent Get Out embossing. These lovely flies and blood drops, and it's all, you know, elements of the film that are just really greatly utilized here. Now this is interesting. Some might find what I've done here a bit strange, but so there's the reversible cover art. It's the back art, but, you know, blown up into widescreen, I guess. And then the other side of it is, you know, this front artwork, and then the details on the back. So the thing is, I don't know if this is me being weird or them not planning this out, but this looks like the type of thing that you're supposed to see past the discs, you know? The thing is, it's a black case. So it just goes to waste. Like, you kind of got to pick one, and I love this art so much that I went ahead and flipped it, and then look at that. You get this blasphemous upside down Jesus and like this kind of cool continuation. I don't know, I think it's interesting and kind of fun. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the film. I'll go ahead and say it right now. This was my favorite film that I watched in this slate, and it's also, I think, the best release of this slate here. Briefly talking about the film, like, holy shit, it is so good. I had never seen this before, and, you know, I'd heard a lot about it. It's such a ubiquitous and kind of huge legacy film in horror and just filmmaking in general. You know, and since Amityville is just a place, like, there's no copyright on that because you couldn't do that. Everybody and their mother has made a no-budget piece of shit Amityville film. But this is the one. Like, this is the OG. It's directed by Stuart Rosenberg, who directed Cool Hand Luke, which is, of course, an amazing film. So, I mean, we're not talking about some, like, kind of slouch-ass director here. Like, this is a real guy directing this shit. And it's clear. Like, this is a very professional, very well-done film. And I think it's pretty scary. I think it's very, like... It's 2 hours long, which is kind of long, especially for, like, a horror film like this. But it never loses my interest, and it never felt slow or like it was overstaying its welcome or anything like that. Like, I think it stays interesting, and it's paced such that, I don't know, I just was enthralled the whole time. There's some really effective moments in this. James Brolin, I think, does a really good job. He's just fucking unhinged and not doing good. He's having a bad time in this film here. The child actors, I think, are all pretty good. And Margot Kidder is so incredible, and I'm a bit flustered watching her in this film. She's just so gorgeous, and you know, I'm a big fan of her performance in Sisters, and I think there's a few others, but there was just something about watching this. I was just like, it was a lot. It was a little overwhelming, if I'm being honest. I'm gonna stop objectifying her for a second and reiterate that her performance as well is really excellent. Like, she's such a good actress, and she does such a good job. I think she's a highlight in terms of the cast in this film. Rod Steiger is in this as well, playing the priest. I've heard criticisms that his performance is, like, way too much, and he's just, like, I don't know, indulging in histrionics for the whole time. And it is a little much, but it feels authentic to me. Like, it feels like he really put his all into it, and he's really kind of channeling a passion there, you know. Some really great special effects in this, just some really zany, wacky turns that I wasn't anticipating. I don't know, I don't really have enough good things to say about the film itself, and I also don't have enough good things to say about the transfer. Holy fucking shit, it looked incredible. One of the best transfers I've seen all year, hands down. There's so many dynamics in the colors on this. Like, you have this opening scene, and there's this autumnal, you know, beautiful on location outdoor lighting and, you know, sets and everything, and it just looks, it looks so good. Like, we're in October, we're in fall time weather, and I just want to live in that, you know, and it just looks so beautiful, like all the orange and browns and the greens and the fall leaves. It just looks so good. And, you know, a lot of this takes place at night and inside of this house, and the darks are handled really well. You know, you can see everything. There's not really like any issues with compression or anything like that. I think the special effects hold up pretty well as well. You know, there's nothing here where it's like, oh, you've shown us too much. Like it's not holding up with this restoration, you know, nothing like that. There's one shot in particular that I want to highlight that just had my jaw on the floor. Okay, there's a scene where James Brolin like flushes the toilet and it fills up with black water, probably. I don't know. That is the most just pitch black, licorice ass fucking black I think I've ever seen on a disc. I mean, I was taken aback. I popped in the Blu-ray to kind of skip through the commentary and take a look at the difference, and this Blu-ray looks amazing too. Like, the HDR kicks it up a notch, and you know, it's the way to watch it, and I think it's the only way to watch it. I don't think they pressed us a Blu-ray of this, but if you don't have 4K capability, I'd say pick it up anyway, because like, it's all in the restoration they did here, which is just stunning. In terms of the special features, there's like a bunch of legacy ones from the Severin Blu-ray, I think. And there's like a Blue Underground feature on it, maybe. And a Screen Factory. I don't know. They really kind of collected everything that was out there and then also did their own new documentary. The new documentary that was done was actually my favorite. And one of the child actors, who is, you know, now an adult and like a high school history teacher or something, he had the best interview, I think. He just has such intelligent things to say about the themes and about his experience on it and about what it was like being a child actor and, you know, his relationship to the film and everything like that. The screenwriter was very honest about the things he didn't like about it and the things that he was asked to do that he didn't agree with. But he was like, you know, at the end of the day, people love it and it's what I'm known for, and I'm okay with that. I just have my problems with it, you know? So I recommend checking out really all of these interviews. I think they're all insightful in their own ways. The one thing I don't like about this release would be the commentary by this dude, Hans Holzer. He's a PhD in like something not real, to be honest with you, like paranormal bullshit. He wrote Murder in Amityville, which was like the premier nonfiction book about the nonfiction book. It's all very questionable, to be honest with you. Now, if you know much about me, you will know that like I am a very devout atheist and skeptic. That's a very big part of who I am and my ethos and my belief system. And watching stuff like this just makes me cringe. So this dude who is like bought completely into this like afterlife, paranormal, pseudoscience garbage, like does a commentary on this, and he mostly talks about himself the whole time. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a good amount of it and I was skipping around just to see what kind of things he had to say. His theory essentially is that this was built on Native American ground, and so there is literally what he calls an Indian, a Native American man, chief, I think, who is just literally like haunting this house and won't leave them alone until they leave. Now that's an interesting place to start thematically for fiction. The idea of the sins of the past coming back to take its revenge. But the idea that there is literally the ghost of a Native American chief, like, ooh, spooking people into leaving. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but the idea that this is the extent that this Native American chief would go to, like, get these fuckers to leave is like, is that really, that's all you got? Okay. But my favorite part of this commentary is when he's kind of like thumbing his nose, scoffing at, like, the priest and the nuns in this, and he's like, you know, Catholic priests are nothing special in terms of exorcisms. Like, I've done tons of exorcisms, and you can do an exorcism. Like, it's a real thing, but they kind of add their own like bullshit to it, and they're making the rest of us look bad. I'm like, no, you all look bad. You're making yourself look bad. This is all a bunch of shit. Like, let's be serious here. So it's not for me, but if that kind of thing is your jam, if you like buy into that, or if you just think that sort of thing is really entertaining, or if you just want to laugh at a dude talking about himself and I don't know, taking this sort of thing way too seriously, check it out, I guess. I kind of wish there was a different, like a second audio commentary to actually discuss the film, because he doesn't do a lot of that, but that's okay. I'm gonna give that one a strong 8 out of 10 as well. I thought about giving it a 9, might upon rewatch, but that's my favorite title in the slate, and I highly recommend that. So yeah, kind of a banger-ass month, to be honest with you. And I think my next package just arrived at my door, so I gotta get cracking on that for the follow-up video. Speaking of which, this is the third of these that I've done at this point, so if you're into Vinegar Syndrome and you want to know which titles I recommend, you know, if you want somebody to spend all their money and spend all their time watching them so that you don't have to do that, I've graciously done that for you, and there is a playlist of these videos that you can watch. So yeah, if this is your sort of jam, your sort of deal, if you're into cult cinema, horror, boutique Blu-rays, Vinegar Syndrome, the Criterion Collection, art house films, all of that shit, we talk about that here all the time, and we have fun. So please like the video, helps me out, helps others find the video. Send this to your freak friends if they're into this kind of thing. I'm really doing my best to build a thoughtful, inclusive, and kind community here on YouTube, so thoughtful and kind comments are greatly appreciated. There's links in the description to my Letterboxd, Rate Your Music, and Instagram accounts if you want to get a little bit more intimate in our relationship, and please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Look forward to more videos pretty soon. I'm about to shoot another one, and once I'm done with the October slate of these titles, I'll be doing another one of these videos. So lots of content planned in the future, so stick around. That's it. God is dead. Hail Satan.